Welcome to the Popish Plot. I'm Nate.
I'm Jessica.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're here to talk about building virtue.
Oh, are we doing another series? And this time, are the virtues as a whole like a beaver and they build things?
No, we are not going to be building with virtue.
I want to compare virtues to animals.
and while we could, and while there are enough virtues that we could do all kinds of series on the virtues, this was just going to be a little one-off.
Okay.
Primarily because I was
One-offs are platypuses.
Just carry on, Nate. Just carry on.
All right. I'm just gonna keep going. I was listening to a podcast, and I think it was productivity related, and they were talking about, how quite oftentimes it takes like 45 days of repetition for a thing that you want to make a habit in order for it to really get ingrained enough in your daily to-dos that it actually becomes a habit.
So that's why all the stuff you give up for Lent, you then go right back. You're like, so close, but I took Sundays off.
Well, this is one of the points at the root of Exodus 90 is that the 45 days of Lent, roughly, is not enough to fully ingrain a habit. People often say it takes 21 days to form a habit. No, it takes 21 days to start a habit. At 45, you're getting there. It really takes 90 days of discipline before you really have made that habit.
Well, and I was listening to another podcast, and they were talking about virtues, and what they pointed out is that if the thing that would be virtuous does not also possess a habitual element, it's not really a virtue. For me to give to charity, that would be virtuous. But when I habitually give to charity or do other things out of love, which as we discussed in our 7 deadly sins, 7 saintly virtues, is another way of translating charity. When I do those things habitually, then at that point I am building that virtue.
To take a very modern example, let's say you struggle with lust. We have a culture that's just drowning in it. If you fight the good fight and you're white-knuckling it and you choose chastity on that day, that's great.
You did a good job.
But that's not yet the virtue. It's when you've done that enough, you've built it into a habit so that it's the natural thing for you to do to choose the right. That's when you've acquired the virtue of chastity.
Exactly. In that one moment, you were chaste. However, you were not chaste by nature. Because you have to go and build that habit. And so it occurred to me just how important it is that we stress habits, good ones, when repeated, they build into virtue.
Yes, and we waited until after the date in which most people stop their New Year's resolutions. So now you feel bad about it.
So now we figure we can guilt you into it.
Yep.
Yes, in all likelihood, as the 19th was, back that way, at least a few days, odds are a fair number of you that made New Year's resolutions.
Most of you have quit.
Most of you have quit them. But
we're not judging.
I have good news. But I come bearing good news.
Glad tidings, you could say?
Glad tidings. It's not too late. Yeah, sure, you fell off the wagon.
You blew it.
You blew it. You meant to go to the gym this morning, but you didn't.
It's very cold out.
It is, at least where we are.
It's not that cold.
You meant to say something nice to that person.
The morning is very morning-y out.
You meant to say something nice and caring to that person that you walk past every day, and you didn't. But the good news is, today, or if you're watching this at the end of your day, tomorrow is a new day.
Yes, and if you start on whatever virtue you're working on now, by summer, when it is much nicer and warmer out, you'll be in the pattern.
Exactly.
Well, apparently the mornings aren't morning-y.
Well, there's so much more morning that unless you're a farmer, Having one grandpa that got up at like 5 in the morning. Where it's not even morning yet during winter, but by summer it's morning.
And since we are talking about taking those good habits and using them to build virtues so that you can then build a virtuous life, we do also have to go, though, and point out the slippery slope. Because that podcast I was listening to that talked about how it takes at least 45 days to build a habit, a good one, it only takes about 3 to build a bad one or to lose the good one that you're working on.
Mm-hmm.
So, for all, and as we pointed out, good habits build into virtues. We also know that there are bad habits.
Mm-hmm.
And if good habits build into virtues, Mike, what do you think those bad habits build into?
Vices?
Yeah. Yeah, those vices that we talked about last spring. All those things, they're not something that you're born with and it just happens. They come from bad habits repeated over and over and over again.
And you become just as habituated. You just get used to choosing the wrong.
And sadly, much like Yoda talked about of the dark side of the Force,
forever it will dominate your destiny.
It has cookies?
And it's not more they're not more powerful.
No, but it is easier.
But they are easier.
It is quicker.
And more seductive.
Mm-hmm. Vice is the lazy man's way.
Exactly. So, make a resolution. Forget about the New Year's resolutions. Unless you've managed to keep on doing yours this long. In which case, keep that up.
Besides, we all know the New Year began back in November with the first Sunday of Advent.
That's right. For those of you who don't have
your liturgical resolutions are completely different.
For all those of you who...
yes, you could lose 5 pounds for God, but it just seems weird.
You're not wrong.
For all those of you who didn't make a New Year's resolution, or perhaps have failed at the New Year's resolution, have decided that you failed at the New Year's resolution that you made.
Start again.
Pick up a new one. Find yourself a good habit and start nurturing and building that new virtuous you.
Mm-hmm. Choose the good. Choose it today. Choose it tomorrow. And if you keep choosing it, eventually you won't even have to choose it anymore. You'll just be habituated to it.
Exactly. So, go down below into the comments section and let us know what virtue it is that you would like to build for yourself in 2021. 2020 was a heck of a year. That was nobody. Everybody was having a hard time doing anything last year. But this year's a new year.
I don't know. It could help for people who had issues with gossip, because if you have no one to gossip to except for your pet, it's just not the same.
I'm confident that if you're gossiping with the pigs, it still counts against your soul.
Your brother was eating all the food. I saw it. Because if you're all at home all the time, you also have very little to talk about gossip. You've heard nothing.
It's true. She hasn't heard anything or seen anybody.
So when you're causing scandal among lower animals, what are they, rodents?
Yes, technically. Yes.
Still not good.
So once again,
I don't think it's scandal.
Down below, comment section, what virtue would you like to say I built over the course of 2021?
And let us know, and then we will pray for you to help you build that virtue.
That's right. And while you're down there, hit the thumbs up button, give us a like, and the subscribe button and the bell next to it so you get notified when the next episode comes out.
It's the big bright red one.
Yeah. And until next time, remember to live your faith.
Love your faith.
And share that love.
I mean, it's not scandal. They know that the brother is constantly eating all the food. If it was like your brother didn't eat all the food, they'd be like, is he okay?
I'm worried about him.
Yes, I don't think she's causing scandal in the pig pigs.
Fair enough.